Today, I build a desk. Sorry, 3 months ago, I built a desk. Unless you're watching this 3 months ago, then today I built a desk. Hello everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel all about furniture building, teacher strikes, and ancient secrets. Today I'm going to walk you through the journey that I took while trying to build a desk with no power tools, no outside workspace, very small sense of design, and about $125. Now when I started, all I had was a drill and a paintbrush. And I based the frame of the desk around these 3/4 inch galvanized steel pipes with like threaded things on the edges. And basically the entire thing is made with these piping and some couplers and some T-joints and stuff. So we'll go through that in a sec. Running through the inventory list of what we're gonna need sometimes can be a little bit boring, so I spiced it up a little bit. For this build, you will need
4 threaded pipes, 18 inches of galvanized steel. Ding! These are your desk legs. Legs for your desk. 8 T-joints to connect your shit. To keep your shit connected. 4 threaded floor flanges. Ding. Floor flange. 4 little nipple tipper things. Nipple. Ding. Nipple. 4 female to female couplers to connect the male parts. 12 6-inch threaded pipes. A 2 4-inch threaded pipes. It's a bunch of random pipes to fit between the other pipes.
Okay, that was fun, but let's just get into it. So the first thing we're going to do is start putting together the legs. Now, as you can see here, the way that I'm putting them together is the flange, a 6-inch pipe, then the T-joint, then the 18-inch pipe, then another T-joint, a 6-inch, and then the little nipple topper. So we're going to do that 4 times, and each one's going to be built exactly the same. So just make sure you watch through the whole thing before doing this so you understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. To get your brain around this, the floor represents where the desk is, and everything's kind of upside down. So we're putting on the little furniture pads onto the bottom of what will be touching the ground eventually. So these are the side supports that'll run along the right and the left side of the desk, connecting the 2 legs. And what they are is basically a 6-inch, a coupler, a 4-inch, a coupler, and then a 6-inch. It seems arbitrary to be putting them together like that. You think I could just do one 16-inch rod, but they didn't make those, and also I just grabbed what I could at the hardware store at the time. So, and for the last piece of piping, I actually didn't mention this or get any footage of it in the first little rap song I did. So, it's a 36-inch pipe. And it cost me about $15. This one's gonna go right along the floorboard, and it'll just help balance out that left to right movement. So this was super weird. I pretty much had to take my entire left leg structure and just thread it entirely around my girlfriend's head. So, you know, I don't really have any advice on how to do it any other way than this, so yeah, do it this way. Worked great.
Now, one of the trickier parts about making this desk was the actual desktop itself. I knew from a pretty early stage that I wanted to make the frame itself out of piping, but for the desktop, I thought a lot about how I could utilize 2x4s, old doors, pallets, and then just looking around, I realized there were tons of plywood options out there. So the one I went with was a 1-inch thick plyboard, and it set me back about $20, but it was pre-cut exactly to the dimensions that I wanted. It was about 2.5 feet by 4.5 feet, which was exactly desk size. I would recommend that you take a trip down to your hardware store and see what kind of desktop options you got.
There are plenty of good options in here. You want to find one that's thick and actual desk size. Doesn't really matter if it's rough, because you know you can pretty much take anything down with sandpaper and make it beautiful. Also, like this one over here. It's good thickness, it's good width, good depth.
Now, I feel like I need to say this. If you have power tools and the means in which to use them properly, definitely don't use plywood. Go sand down some oak and make yourself a desk. Go check out Easy As and do it properly.
This is the door I'm gonna use. That's looking mint. Easy As.
This is not a woodworking video. This is a video about how to put together a desk for $125 using pipes, plywood, and a comic book.
So that's kind of where I'm at with it, but it's definitely too tall. Like, as you can see, when I'm standing, it comes up to about my hip. I think what I'm gonna have to do now is substitute this 6-inch and this 6-inch with the 4-inch on every single leg, which would ultimately take down 4 inches total from it, which I think would be perfect. I was filming that desk build part on a Sunday night and Rona was closed, so I figured, hey, why not get started on the other element of the desk, the decoupage desktop. Knowing that I was going to ultimately be working with plywood, I didn't really want to use any sort of stain, so I figured, hey, why not do a sort of collage type thing? So the next step was to clean up the pages. Originally, I was going to cut out individual panels that I liked, but I thought, you know, for the base layer at least, let's just get a nice spread across the whole table, and that's where I started was, hey, let's try to fill the table with full pages. And that's where I got. So now I had to go back to the book, find more pages that I liked, and rip out even more. So now I'm like, yeah, sure, I totally got enough to fill up the whole table. And apparently I have the worst spatial design ever. At this point, I just say, fuck it, let's start gluing shit. So that's what I do. I'm gonna say right off the bat, I did absolutely zero research if this was the way to do it. It worked, but I mean, you might want to find other people doing this because it was a bit of a headache. The first thing I did was basically just glue the paper straight onto the board. Now, in hindsight, I totally should have had way less overlap. There were just too many layers of paper on what I was calling the base layer. This was definitely too ambitious for my first application of paper onto the wood. And I'm just absolutely globbing on this varathane here. Again, something I should have done differently. And I didn't even let it dry before I put on my another layer of pages, ones that I should have been doing 3 or 4 days after this. Aside from the fact that my initial layer was way too liberal, I still think this was a good approach of putting down a layer of paper at the bottom that you didn't care much about, that was basically just a backdrop, and then designing a desk that you wanted to look at every day. Watching this back, I feel like such a fucking idiot. I should have done in a week what I did here in a night. You know, a couple pages at a time, some lacquer, let it dry, and repeat over and over until it eventually looked like how I wanted it to. Not like this. But all that being said, by the time it actually dried, it didn't look too bad. I thought I could use a little bit of a sand though, because it was really bumpy and rimply. Rimply. But one thing I wasn't expecting is that the sanding would actually affect the paper underneath of it, and it gave it this really cool quality. But of course, I added more lacquer because, Jesus, I'm obsessed with lacquer apparently. But it was around this second coat and the second drying that it started to really take shape. So the next morning, I sort of trimmed the edges, cut it up. I hummed and hawed a lot about whether I should trim them or try to wrap them down, but I figured it was just easier just to cut them straight off. Cutting the edges was actually probably the hardest part because I needed to actually have a fine edge, and then I decided to sand it down, and this helped a lot. This gave it a nice desk sort of look. So after a nice sand, and I swear I'm not sponsored by Varathane, though oh my god, I would love that. This is when it became a desk for me. I woke up on a Sunday saying, this is the day I scratch my ass on camera and finish this fucking desk. One last round of sanding on all 4 edges just to take any of the last pieces of glue that might have dripped off on all the sides. And I also wasn't sure what edge was going to be sort of against my wrists on the desk, so I just really wanted to make sure that it all kind of had a nice smooth feel all around the sides. Yeah, one last sand on the top because it was still kind of rimply again, but I kind of liked that look. So, you know, this is how it ended up, and I really dig it. So here's the frame, and I managed to get some of the 4-inch pipes that I mentioned earlier. So I laid down some cardboard directly on the floor just so I wouldn't mess up any of the desktop. And one element that I was not expecting to be this difficult was actually centering it. So I had to measure everything a million times to make sure the frame was actually positioned well, so it wasn't all wobbly bobblesome. And then you screw it up. You want to make sure that the screws are long enough to actually catch into the particle board, but not so long that it'll bust right through. So I don't know, I have 1/2-inch screws. It seemed fine. So I drilled pilot holes in each leg, and I just wanted to make sure I did 1 screw on each side first, so that it wouldn't move around, to make sure it all kind of kept its position, and then just drill baby drill. And this thing ends up being a lot more stable than I was expecting. I didn't use any glue on the pipes, which maybe I should have, or any washers or anything, and I was worried, but fuck it, whatever. It was like a $150 desk, you know? And that's it. One of my main concerns as I was putting it together was, oh man, this is going to just look like a mess. It's going to be a disaster. But I find as long as I'm keeping my desk clean, the sort of chaos of the desktop collage it works. Obviously, if my desk is messy, it looks far messier than a regular desk would because it's just an assault on the eyes. But with the Mac that I have and the white walls, and our living room is fairly minimalist, to have a desk that's kind of crazy like this is a lot of fun. And for a guy who makes YouTube videos and writes shitty rap, I think it's perfect.
I am incredibly happy with how this desk turned out. And sure, it's not the fanciest piece of furniture on the planet, but for something as unique, sturdy, and transportable as this, you really could do a lot worse. And what initially sent me down this path of trying to build my own desk was that you would look online or you'd look at these big box stores and they'd be selling $300-400 desks for something that would not survive 1 or 2 moves, let alone being made of steel. This desk is straight up made of steel. Thank you so much for watching, and if you like this video, please consider subscribing and doing the little ding-a-ling down below, and we'll catch you on the next one. Easy A's.